So in a recent survey, Bernie Sanders beats Trump, even when he is called a socialist. So this information or this survey was done by Data for Progress. Let me show you the results. This was reported on by Vox. So you see here, Bernie Sanders leads Donald Trump in polls, even when you remind people he's a socialist. So scrolling down here, Bernie Sanders is self-described socialist in a country where socialism is unpopular. I would contest that, but anyways, going on. And many observers are convinced that Sanders' lead over Donald Trump in head-to-head polling would vanish if the... Okay, all of this I disagree with. Next. It is difficult to know whether that's true or not, but a recent message testing experiment run by the progressive group Data for Progress at least calls that theory into question. In their experiment, tagging Sanders as a socialist did not seem to undermine his campaign, something we've also seen over the years in Vermont. Sanders consistently does a bit better in elections for a Senate seat than you would expect from the state's baseline party lean. So, going down here, they had three different questions here. So for the first one, there was no information. So the question for the poll was, if the 2020 U.S. Presidential candidate, if the U.S. Election was held today, who would you vote for if the candidates were Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump? So that's the first one. No extra information, just Bernie or Trump. The next one, if the 2020 election was held today, who would you vote for if the candidates were Democrat Bernie Sanders and Republican Donald Trump? So now they're adding in the party for each of the candidates. And the last question, if the 2020 election was held today, who would you vote for if the candidates were Democrat Bernie Sanders, who wants to tax the billionaire class to help the working class, and Republican Donald Trump, who says Sanders is a socialist who supports a government takeover of healthcare and open borders? All three versions, Bernie wins. So with no information, Bernie wins. This one I find the most interesting. When they mention Democrat and Republican, it's actually where Bernie has the least amount of support. So when Bernie is actually identified as just a Democrat, it's down to 45, 43. But then when you add in what Bernie wants to do in terms of taxing the billionaire class, his support goes back up to 47, and it's 47, 42. So this, they called Obama a socialist, and he won 2 terms. So it doesn't matter. Like, what people want is authenticity. Do you actually believe the things you are saying? Do you have a record of showing you believe the things that you are saying? That is what a lot of voters work on. People have this assumption that just because we're educated on the ideologies and, the platforms that everybody else is. That's not true. Most people just vote based on how they feel about a candidate. And the way the country feels right now is that they are tired of your standard politician. That's why Donald Trump's the president. A lot of people stayed home, did not vote for Hillary Clinton because she once again was just your typical politician, backed by Wall Street, essentially just an arm of corporate interests. And people didn't feel motivated enough to really go out and endorse and vote for her in big numbers. Now, yes, she won the popular vote, but to still lose the election to Donald Trump, I mean, it really shows you how much anger there really was in the country for something different. Now, obviously, look, a lot of Trump's base, they support him because he's racist. Like, that's a huge part of it. But there is a part of the country, I would say, but even that part of the country and a lot more people stayed home because they did not have a candidate on the Democratic side that actually spoke to their issues or at least was authentic. So Bernie Sanders having this record of authenticity, I mean, that's why he got Joe Rogan support. And Joe Rogan is sort of your typical voter. I mean, somebody who isn't all that engaged in politics. Yes, they'll vote sometimes, but they won't really be all that engaged in the day-to-day of what's happening. But they can see Bernie Sanders. They can see his record of consistency. And this is something that Rogan pointed to when he was discussing his support for Bernie Sanders, that he's an authentic guy. And he doesn't have, these moments that the GOP can really attack him over. Because anything Bernie has ever said and done, it's been within what you would expect Bernie Sanders to say or do. I mean, it is who Bernie Sanders is and has always been. Meanwhile, like, Joe Biden wouldn't even be able to attack Trump on Social Security because of Joe Biden's history on Social Security and wanting to freeze and cut it. So like you're immediately taking away all these potential ways to attack Donald Trump, attack Trump's ties to corporate interests. Biden couldn't do that because he has ties to corporate interests. Like these are all these, having someone like Joe Biden as the nominee, you are taking away so many potential ways to attack Donald Trump and again, suppress the Democratic vote. Young people aren't going to come out and vote for Joe Biden. Progressive independents aren't going to vote for Joe Biden. The typical working class non-voter that didn't come out for Hillary in 2016 isn't going to come out for Joe Biden. So you need someone who's actually going to bring out people that don't normally vote. That's how you win as a Democrat. Democrats win when turnout is high. Republicans win when general turnout is low, but their base comes out, and their base usually always comes out. So that's why you need a high turnout to be able to defeat Donald Trump, and Bernie Sanders is able to do that because he's still going to get the 2016 Democratic voters that voted against Trump in 2016. He's still going to get those because people that voted in 2016 are engaged voters. Those are engaged Democratic voters. So they're going to vote for the nominee regardless of who it is. But on top of that, you also need to be able to attract a huge base of voters that did not come out in 2016. Again, the young people, the independents, the working class voters. So that's who Bernie Sanders speaks to. And even when you use an attack like socialism, you can see it's not going to work.